on, people? It's Hajimoto, and we've got another Evanix Regulator install video for you. This is the Max Air, and you guys saw in the previous video I did the Air Speed, which was the more conventional style semi-automatic. This time we're going to do the bullpup version. This one's a little more complicated because there's a little bit more that has to come off in order to gain access to the valve assembly, but we're going to get into it and we're going to walk you through it step by step. To do this regulator install, you're going to need yourself a set of Allen keys, millimeter. You're going to need a set of those. Some silicone or synthetic lubricant to put on the O-rings. Remember guys, you don't ever want to use a petroleum product that's going to be put under that high pressure because it'll ignite. You're going to want to, you could use a silicone grease, which I have here in a tube. You're going to need a towel because you're going to get that silicone on you and things will get a bit slick. Also, you're going to need just something that you can use as a lining up tool. You can use a punch or an awl or one of the Allen keys if you need to. Okay guys, the process to install on the Max Air is a bit different. If you see, it's a bullpup design and we have all of this aluminum structure here that's around our pressure tube. We've got to get that out of the way so that we can get a good grip on that tube to get it off of there. So we're going to be taking off this lower stock area. We're going to be degassing the rifle. We're going to be taking off this upper aluminum area, sliding that off, getting access to the tube, taking the tube off, putting in our regulator, then reassembling the rifle. Let's get started. Okay guys, what we're going to do in this particular setup, we've got a camera looking forward. I'm going to zoom in so that you get a better view here. I have a camera directly above that's going to look down on this. That'll help give a second angle. Hopefully it'll give you everything you need to do this install. First things first, we want to make sure that there's no magazines, it's not loaded, there's no ammo in it, it's good to go. Make sure it's decocked. You want to make sure of that. And then pointing it in a safe direction, you just want to make sure that it's not doesn't have any load, it's not ready to, it's not going to fire, just to make sure it's a clean, safe weapon. We're going to turn the weapon upside down. At this point, there's going to be this one Allen key here, which I think is a number 2. I'm just going to get that more stable. Take a number 2, and this is going to be the hardest thing to get back in on this rifle. I find this Allen key to be challenging. So we'll get that out. Those of you with a wood stock are going to find it very difficult to get that wood stock off because you don't want to damage it. I'll show you a little trick on how I take these off, and it's worked for me so far. Putting it right on its butt plate, then taking your hand, gripping right where the Picatinny rail is, and what you're going to do is with this, pull this way and down while pushing this away. So we're going to essentially be stripping this off of the frame of the action. Just like that. This tipping action is what works for you. When you try to do the straight pull, there's too much surface area, so there's too much friction. I've never had much success with it. Now that we have that taken out of the stock, there's a couple of things that we've got to take apart. Before we start taking those apart though, we want to degas this rifle to make sure we get all of the air pressure out of it so that we're not dealing with anything under pressure. We're going to take our number 5, just slipping by the trigger rod. We should be able to just sneak by. We're going to let the air out just like we did on the Air Speed. We're just going to double check one more time to make sure that our gauge shows 0, which it does. So we're out of pressure now. So we're turning it back over to the top side, and we want to take out these 2 Allen fasteners here. The trick, what we're going to try to do is this entire upper rail here is going to try to slide off as one piece so we can get it out of our way. So we'll take those 2 fasteners out first. Those should be 3 millimeters. Now that we have those two out, we're going to flip the action over, and I'm going to use my vise to help me clamp this thing in place so that it helps stabilize it. Helps a little bit. We're going to loosen this forward grub screw, so we might as well go ahead and loosen that right now. This forward screw literally bites into the pressure tube, so you have to take this off, and if you've got the carbon fiber tube like I do, it'll gouge it as you're trying to thread this out, so make sure you pay attention to that. On this guy, we're going to pull off the cap. We're going to loosen the barrel band grub screw on the bottom. Once that's loose, we're going to take the barrel band off completely. We have that grub screw loose. What we're going to do is make sure that we have all other fasteners that are holding this assembly in place loose so that we can slide this off. So in looking at this rod is connected to the trigger down here at the end. Really the only thing we have to mess with here is this end. We don't want to lose our adjustment here. This has been backed out to the point where that trigger is going to work perfectly, so we don't really want to mess with that. So in pulling the trigger, we can pull the nipple out of the trigger end, and this block will come right off. At this point, this aluminum transfer, this whole section here, is now detached from that pressure tube. We should be able to slide this off the rifle. As you can see, I'm sliding it towards the end of the air rifle. So we're going to slide that right off the end of the tube. Like that. Now we're left with our pressure tube, which we left all the air out of. Then again, just like we did on the airspeed, with this held firmly, we should be able to turn and get that air tube to thread right off. Okay, now we're ready to put our regulator in. It's going to go inside this opening, so we want to make sure this is good and clean. We're going to take ourselves our silicone lube. I'm going to put 1 drop or 2 right on the O-ring, work it around. Same thing with this larger upper O-ring. Work it around so we've got lubrication on that. And then we're going to take the regulator and insert it into the receiver portion of the rifle. At this point, we're going to reintroduce the pressure tube. And when you put the tube on, you want to try to slide it over in one motion going this way, because if you pull back, this is multiple pieces, it can come apart on you. And then you've got to try to take it all apart, make sure it's together right, and start over. So just you want to do this in one fluid motion. With the tubes going over, push straight towards the trigger. Once you're against the threads, we're going to go ahead and thread it back on. We're going to thread that tube all the way back in again. And we're going to tighten it so that the tube is against the block. You'll know when you're back in the right spot because the little set screw mark will be pointing right up top where it was originally. Now that we have the tube back on, we're going to just double check to make sure that our pressure screw is tight. We're good and tight on that. We're going to take our entire upper assembly now, sliding it over the barrel and the pressure tube, putting it back on. Carefully sliding it. There's no need to force it. It should slide very easy over the whole assembly. Make sure your trigger rod goes right back into where it belongs, where it's going to line up with the trigger assembly. And on the top, we're just trying to let it slide into the frame. I'll turn this over so you can see. When we're trying to slide this in, we're trying to get this to go back into its cutout so that it properly aligns, and you'll see it go right back like where it belongs, just like that. While I have the gun in this position, I'm going to go ahead and put those two Allen back in. I'm not tightening them yet, I'm just putting them in and just getting them started. Just got them started. On the bottom side, I'm going to go ahead and take my trigger block, putting it on the rod first, and then putting it back into the trigger so that it's all lined back up like it was originally. This way I didn't lose my trigger adjustment. This little grub screw that we had at the end, we can go ahead and just get that semi-tight. We don't need to crank down on that. We just want it touching. That's it, just to touch this. We don't want to crank it in. We can put our barrel band back on again, going over the barrel shroud first, then over the fill tube. And we'll go ahead and cinch that up. Our cap can go back on now. At this point, we're going to turn the rifle over and tighten the top two, which are these two. Okay, at this stage, we're going to go ahead and reintroduce our stock back to the action. And the way that I found this to be easiest is if it's in a vise, like what I'm working on, putting it upside down. And this is the screw that's kind of tough to get realigned, because when we put this on, it fits so tightly that it's tough to get that perfect. Well, when you look at this, you see this notch here that I'm pointing to? That notch comes straight down over it. I'm going to lay the rifle on its side so that the overhead view gets a better view of what I'm doing. This notch lining up with that block is the key of knowing that you're in the right spot. So we know we're in the right spot now because we're right lined up with that. And then we're going to simply push it on. The wood stock on this, I have had a lot of problem because they fit so tightly. I'm not pushing this all the way down at this point, guys, and I'll show you why. I'll take an Allen key that's smaller than the screw hole, and I'm just making sure that it's there and I'm aligned with it, so that when I push down, as you can see, that Allen key straight up, I know I'm aligned with the hole. So now when I'm squeezing these two together, like that, I know I'm aligned with it. Okay, we'll go ahead and cinch that up. At this point, the rifle is reassembled. We can refill it and give it a test shot. Let's go ahead and get some air in it. What I'm going to do is keep the rifle upside down so that I have better access to the port over here. And like I said in my previous video, I like to cock the valve so that way I know that there's no spring pressure on the valve that'll let the air come out as fast as I'm putting it in. And again, we want to go slow with the fill on this. We don't want to go too fast and overheat that. Okay, now that we know that the rifle's filled with air, And as we can see by the upper camera here, I'm going to show what we've got in the tube for pressure. So we're good to go. I'm going to point the rifle in a safe direction, take it off safety, and just give it a cycle. Working like a charm. That's it. Okay guys, that's the install of the regulator in the Max Air semi-automatic from Evanix. I will try to follow up and do some videos showing the performance characteristics of these regulators when they're installed in these. If you have any comments, please leave them down below the video. I will respond as soon as I possibly can. Thanks for watching guys, and we'll see you in the next one. So there we go, my air gun brethren. Another video done. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it greatly and look forward to your comments below. Thanks for stopping by.